going to be starting with the norms. So 5th grade PLC norms are be present, talk on topic, total participation, and start and end on time. For our roles, the presenter is going to be Kathy, and then the other ELA teachers, which is myself and Anna. I'm facilitating, the recorder is Sonia, and our timekeeper is Lauren. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is the presenter, Kathy, is going to be kind of debriefing us about the standards that were assessed in our language arts mini assessment that we chose to give the kids. If I could get 6 minutes on the clock, please, my timekeeper.
Got it. Okay, so this text is Throwing Fire. It's from iReady, the iReady toolkit, and it is a story. And what we were focusing on was standard 1.1 and 1.3. So 1.1 is to be able to quote accurately from a text when explaining what the text says explicitly and when drawing inferences from the text. And then 1.3 was to be able to compare and contrast two or more characters, settings, or events in a story or drama, drawing on specific details in the text. And we are focusing on the characters in this case, not the setting or the events. So we had 3 questions that we were looking at, questions 5, 6, and 7. In my homeroom, I had 6 kids, I had half of my kids miss part or all of number 6 and part and all of number 7. And then in my block 2, I had over half of my kids. And when I say part of 7 is I broke it into 4 parts, so that they would be able to do the character trait and then the descriptor. And then 6, a lot of the students were able to give 1 detail but not 2, but that would not be considered correct. So Anna and Sam, how did your groups do?
So for my homeroom, for number 5, pretty much all of them got number 5 correct. I had 1 that missed that. But 6 and 7 was really where they had some difficulties. So out of 23 students, I had 14 get it correct. So that means that, 7 that got it? Yeah. And then for number 8, I had 13 out of 23 of my homeroom get it correct. And then, or number 7. Did I just say number 7? And then for my block 1, I had 15 out of 18 kids get it correct. For number 6, I had 8 out of 18 kids get it correct. And number 7, I had 7 out of 18 get it correct. So number 5, definitely they did pretty well with, but 6 and 7 was where they experienced the most difficulty.
Yep, I agree. Number 5, I think maybe 1 missed it, but everybody else, the issue was number 6. Number 6, only 10 of my students got it in homeroom, and 4 got it in my other block.
Out of how many students?
I have 16 in my non-homeroom and 24 in my homeroom. So that was a lot of them missed it. And then for 7, I broke it down into the 4 sections between the description and the evidence shown. So what I did is, like, if they got all 4 parts, I did 4 out of 4, and I broke it down where only in my homeroom 6 kids got all 4 parts in number 7, but 9 got 3 parts out of the 4, and 2 got half, and then 5 of them missed all 3 except for 1. So it was I thought 7 was a big challenge for my group.
And we made it more difficult, number 7. So originally they gave the answer choices and the descriptions, but we kind of wanted to see what they would come up with for their descriptions of the characters on their own to try kind of challenge them a little bit more.
Right. Well, I like that. It's almost like using text evidence, which was number 6, where they seem to not do very well.
Yeah.
So, well, and also part of, I think when we scored them, they may have done a minor characteristic, like said he was small. Well, yes, he was small, but that is not the character trait when we're trying to describe him that's going to best understand that character. So I think the kids were, trying to pull something from it, but they definitely, that. And for number 6, a lot of the kids were able to get 1 of the details. Or my other problem was a lot of them just didn't read the question carefully because they put at the end what the king did, how they knew that by what the king said. And if you look at it, obviously they had to give evidence to infer. And I think that is definitely a higher level skill for our kids. I think that really explicit stuff they're able to get, but when you have to start digging deeper and
Using the details
using
from the
those
text
to infer,
they
Right.
really struggle with that. And then being able to communicate how they knew that. So they might have plopped some evidence in, but then not been able to tell us, well, how did that help us to know? I had a couple kids just write a bunch of texts and copy the text, but then not be able to explain why they chose that one. So
with their own thinking, right?
Or not even include now, but include the king.
yes,
Like
they
they
talk
focus
about
on one
king
side.
said.
Right, not fully answering the question too.
Right.
So I think we're getting into the next part. So the timekeeper, if you could please set 5 minutes on the clock, where we're going to talk about the trends. So we're kind of segueing into that already, just based on the data, sort of what are we noticing about how the students were answering. Sounds like 6 and 7 mostly, and what trends, what patterns that we're noticing across all 3 of our classes.
Well, I found that a lot of the kids, again, were able to come up with a trait or a description, but not necessarily they matched together. So a couple of kids said that now was brave. And when they were trying to explain why he was brave, it said because he threw the stick. And it really wasn't a sign of bravery. So I think they're trying to come up with something. And they were trying to play around with it. Then for the Warriors, they really, I look at yours and said big. And I think they're trying so hard to follow what they think is what we want to see that they're missing the opportunity to go a little bit deeper.
And when I was talking to some of my kids about why they chose, because this one, she chose little for the description of no, and then big for the description of the other warriors. And if you look at number 5, I mean, the answer in number 5 is kind of having to deal with size. So I think that they sometimes do that in test taking in general. They rely on some of the answers that they've chosen in the past to kind of help them with the next question. So her reasoning was, well, number 5 even gave it to me that,
Well, I just see how that could be confusing.
Right,
They
right.
directly, or they're speaking only about his size.
Right. So she kind of, her perception was that when they said description, they were talking about size. But kind of going back to what Kathy was saying is having the discussion with your class about what descriptions are versus like physical features. Right. Character traits as opposed to physical features.
And that's taking it to that next higher level. So, at the basic level here, they definitely understood the story and were able to do that. And so let me ask you, what would you think about this description? So one of the warriors, one of my students put the word arrogant. And his supporting evidence was because they call him a little runt, but he beat them. And I just, again, trying to figure out, is that the best word choice?
I'm not quite sure that's the correct
I agree,
word.
and so that's what I'm
in that.
struggling with them is choosing that word. I put there, is this the best word choice together? And I didn't feel like that was.
But at the same time, I could see why they're saying that because they're making fun. So
But that's
arrogant.
not really arrogant. They were bragging about themselves. They were more teasing.
They didn't back up that word.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Some of the
Yeah.
words know what
Right.
they think that word
Right.
means.
Right,
That might
right,
be what
Right,
it's
because
they
when you
might
look at
have
the evidence,
confusion.
is that really supporting? And so that's another conversation. Is like you said, to go a little bit deeper. Why this word? And are we just using a big word because it's impressive?
Right.
And
Do we really know what it means?
And for now, he said creative, and he said because he carved a hole in his stick and used the wind as his advantage. So that I get.
And a lot of mine put clever, which
Right.
clever and creative. I can kind of see the similarity in that.
Well, and they called him the clever one. That was
Well,
his name.
so some kids put that as their piece of evidence, and to me, I said, no, again, because we want to get the proof that he's clever. But
Right.
that is very,
Right.
that is an obvious
Yeah.
choice, just like
Yeah.
the small or the front.
Which I took that over if they did little or big. So if they
Right.
put clever,
At least they were
Yes.
getting
This part
understanding.
more backs up arrogant. There's a pause and they laugh.
right.
Correct.
The king is
Right.
joking.
Right.
That little
Yeah.
run. That little thing.
A lot of them put judgmental too. From
Yeah, I had one or two.
Are you joking?
But
Yeah.
one of mine said unexpecting for the Warriors because they said that they did not expect Nouse to win. But that's not a match. They're
That's not-
using
I don't know if that's a
the
character
It's
trait.
not.
character trait.
But
Yeah.
this person is just matching their description. It doesn't always have to be, there has to be a reason, but
Right.
he's just taking the word and using it
As
for
a trait.
yeah, and that's not. So this, I mean, there's also an understanding of the meaning here and how they're going to
And I
use
know
it.
on FSA they have to, there'll be the part A and part B, which character trait, and then part B
Right.
is, they'll have a paragraph, underline which sentence. And so part of what we need to continue working on is picking the best evidence. It's not just the best word,
Or just because it's in the text.
or just because it's in the text, somewhere in there, because he is small, but, but
Which is, I think, a skill that we can work on for sure during guided reading and shared reading.
So what would be the best? What would be the best word
Well, what
there?
they put was, what they have, proud for the description of no, and then,
Which I thought was confusing.
Yeah, I didn't really.
yeah, proud
no,
is
proud
for
was for
the
the
Warriors.
description of the Warriors.
Right.
What
Yeah.
they put,
Smart, I think.
Smart.
And I think
Which
smart
clever
and
was fine.
clever, I think
Yeah.
would be,
But it was proud.
But I did not see
Yes.
the Warriors as
Because
proud.
the other one.
right.
right, that was a difficult one, and we kind of discussed that.
But I want to know, I mean, on the answer key, they said proud and they said smart. Were those the only two possible right answers?
Well,
If they
now-
found supporting details that
Well,
prove
that's why
their.
we took it
chose
off
to.
on this part, because we just felt like, first of all, we're trying to get away from nice, funny, kind as our character traits, because at this level, they're looking for, way higher vocabulary. So when we saw those choices, we're like, okay, we gotta amp the game, and I just don't feel like these were the best choices here. So we were, Barbara, looking to see, can they back it up? If they could come up with something,
Right.
can you back it up? And a lot of this is to now have those discussions and say, you're right, he was small, or they were big, but when we think about this character, is that really how we're going to describe him? Thinking about what happened and what, they
And I
did.
think it was interesting to see what their perception is of a character trait,
Right.
at this point of the year. It's a good discussion point to have with our kids.
Right.
Okay, so for the next part of our protocol, we're going to be interpreting the student work. So from the student's perspective, what is the student being asked to do? This is where we're picking apart the standard and what steps are they required to complete in order to be proficient. So if I could get 10 minutes on the clock, please.
So this big difference, I think, between even 4th grade and 5th grade is now they're having to look at multiple characters and being able to really, so you first have to understand one character before, and now you have to understand two and how they kind of play in for each other. So that was something that we were asking them to do. And then the prove it. So in both questions, they had to go back to the text. And that would be something that that would become one of our needs, is to really focus in on finding that best piece of evidence.
That matches the.
Right,
Because it
right.
sounds like they were good at citing evidence, but it
But
doesn't
then
always
also
match.
explaining why.
Right.
She was saying this earlier for number 6, is that they could quote accurately from the text, which is 1.1, but then explaining why that's the best text evidence and why that's purposeful and why that answers the question. They don't necessarily do that. A lot of my kids, they put the exact lines that I would have put, but then they just put a period. And they don't go back and say, this then explains why this belongs to no. They just kind of leave it at that.
Is never drawn.
Right.
And that's the insight that we're trying to also then
Mhm.
teach with our essay writing too.
Right.
So it's definitely that. But I do feel like when we think about the strengths, I feel like the students understood the story for the most part, and they definitely,
the big idea for sure.
they were able to be able to do, and know that there was a difference between these two characters, and there was like almost the good and the bad. However they
Right.
saw them, they knew that there was something special about now instead of the Warriors. So that was definitely, I feel like, a strength for them to be able to do that. And
I think they can I think that most of them do understand character trait, but I just think it's making them dive a little bit deeper into a bigger picture of the character trait instead of just kind of giving something like talking about the difference between physical features and character traits with our kids is important too, because I see that last year too. Right. A big thing. So I think that they understand what character trait is, but just to reiterate it with them at this point of the year is something, that is a need, I would say.
I also feel that, at least for my group, that for now it was easier for them to pull a trait for him, but it became a little more challenging. So I saw more errors on the warrior side to describe them, and it could have been because maybe the supporting evidence was not as clear to them.
You had to
And you had to do a
infer more.
lot
Had
more
to infer
inferring.
more. So that was definitely a more challenging part of this.
Right. Yeah.
I think in terms of number 6, I think it is, and this is where, they can, I know we're doing the same thing in math and science as well, is okay, here's my, first you gotta know what the question's asking, right? What is it that it wants me to find out here? And then when they're pulling from the text, or when they're explaining their answer, tying it to text, but then also that next piece, like you said, explaining why is this, what, and I know that correlates all the time with you guys. Hey, you can't just tell me you got this answer. How did you get it? Why? And proving it and thinking to that. So.
But you're right that they don't always even read the question, like answer
Right.
the question, like they miss the question completely. Some of them, even the high level kids, once they get in their head, oh, this is what I want my answer to be, then they've missed the question.
It's just like the interpreting remainders.
Yeah.
They're doing the math, but they're not really reading what the question is.
Making
And the
sense
question,
of it.
right,
Whereas
they
you go back,
use that.
you can't have a third of a person.
Right.
Yeah.
They
To
really
make
do have to go
sense out
back.
of their answers,
Right,
and that's what we're trying to get them to do.
Yeah,
make
the
sense
making
out of it.
sense part. Because I think that, like, we said that they can definitely, they understood the text. They can summarize it, but then, like, synthesizing the information that they read and then putting their ideas on top of it is a hard skill.
I think it is a hard skill.
Yeah, it is really hard.
I would
It
have
is.
loved to have seen how they would answer the question about the theme in this one. Because I do think it's such a strong theme in this text. But of course that's not. But just to kind of see, because I do think that it was that piece was pretty evidence.
Okay, are we good about that? Yeah. Awesome. All right. So the next part are implications for classroom practice. What steps could all teachers take next with a student to better adhere to the student's needs? Which teaching strategies might be the most effective? And if you could put 5 minutes on the clock. Thank you.
I think you kind of said it a little bit before, where we are just going to dive into character traits and see the differences, not just the physical, but let's go deeper and look at other character traits, because I think some of them are a little bit confused.
And I think for writing, you were saying, we talk about putting their insight on top of their evidence. It's something that we're going to be doing all year long, but it's something that was needed in number 6, and it's something that's needed in number 7 too, where they have to think about it, and they're putting it in their answer space for the evidence. So I think, modeling different citation stems and how we can put our insight when we're doing our prompts that we're doing this week.
There's a cool lesson in the reading Sarah Bellows' book is where she has them take the character and throughout the text kind of put different traits to kind of notice a trend. So that they might have seen, oh, this says he's small, or this shows this, here. But then you look at the whole piece and go, oh, all of these clever would be the most, because sometimes they might have a character who's bad or mean for a minute, but that doesn't mean that their character. If they just are pulling out, oh, this is piece of text evidence. So same, I think with the warriors, maybe to show over time. Well, because they did this here, and then because they did this here, oh, what are we noticing that they, how, I think that would be a lesson that would be helpful for them, and be able to take it to that next level, and push, push our high kids, and then give support for those that need it as well.
And something like the standard, like this is from our book, where it's like picking apart the standard for 5th grade. I think something that bumps it up to be a little bit more rigorous than what they were doing with character traits in 4th grade is that they have to understand and explain how similarities in character traits affect the plot of a text. So it's not just being able to say, oh, well, he was nice or he was mean. It's explaining then how that went to affect, the main idea or main events over time. So it's one thing, first they need to get the character trait, and we have that discussion, but then it's talking about, well, then how did that affect the plot of the entire story, which is hard.
Well, if you look at the achievement level descriptors for level 5, they have to be able to contrast the 2 more characters, and it could be a secondary character. But then it says also drawing on a subtle And that, I think that's, the subtly implied stuff, and that is where they're, those highest level, those questions are gonna really get them.
Yeah.
The 3 is just comparing them and being able to draw on specific
Right,
details.
right.
But to take our kids to that level 5, where obviously we want them to go, we have to start really practicing those primary and secondary, but then, okay, what does the text not say that we're able to pull?
And have that discussion with them,
Yeah,
because that's what they're
model
getting
that.
quizzed on, yeah.
And that's what you guys obviously do as well too. I mean, that why those discussions, and that's, and math and science can support that as well.
Absolutely.
Anything else? As far as teaching strategies that might be most effective?
I know we do this throughout the year, but the text marking of the questions,
Coding.
certainly what it
Yeah.
asks, underlying vocabulary words, like when it says what is
Even
not,
note
and
taking, as you were saying.
the active thinking on tests, which
Yeah.
I know we do a lot of
We
in
do.
science, which
We do a lot of
supports
math
you
as
guys.
well.
It was so funny. So many of them circled 2 details, and
They automatically do.
So they do, but really stopping and thinking, and then sharing a lot of. I mean, I think your kids, a lot of it is, stopping first and thinking, what is this
What's
asking me to do
happening?
here?
Yes,
Jeanette came to me and she was like, I don't understand this question, and really, what is it asking me? What do you mean before the king announced and the emperor?
Because
And
you're not realizing
vocabulary.
how many different processes that takes.
Totally.
Right.
And so, just maybe helping break apart the question. Okay, first, what do I have to know first? Okay, then what do I do next with it?
Picking,
Before
like,
you can do this.
Picking keywords out of the question, I think is a really
And
good
like
thing.
sequencing, and that's, the same with math always.
Right.
They have a
Right.
really hard time, it's what are you asking?
Right, and then they can go back and see, did I answer this question, self-assess themselves, and, because a lot of them, like we were saying, they didn't even answer the question, and I think that they're so quick to do that sometimes, that have them trained somehow to pick apart the key ideas in the question, and then go back and make sure that they answered it completely, because even conversing with them and guided, they're so quick to realize, oh wait, I didn't even answer this,
Do
and I'm like,
one, or,
Sounds like what we did in math today, having to go back and actually like circling the words that were important, and then going back and making sure that they could do the inverse operation to make sure they got it correct. It's just those steps that they are missing.
Yep.
To be able to
think.
yes,
Slow down.
slow it down.
And a lot of them enjoyed the story. So a lot of them enjoyed it, but are they thinking about it? Are they reading it for a purpose that I'm going to have to answer questions?
Right.
And know
But that's a
okay,
balance too, because we don't want them thinking only about the questions they need to answer.
Right,
They need
right.
to
You missed the
understand
whole
big
Right,
picture.
right. Which
But
we
then
were saying
That brings in
from
the
the,
infer
yes,
and imply,
and I think you said from the training you went to or the meeting last week is that we need to get our kids in the habit of reading something, not just for one particular question, get the big idea first, make sure that they're understanding it, and then go back and see these detailed questions and see what they got to do. But they've got to be able to understand what it's about before they can
Right.
answer any type of standard-based question. Okay. All right. So our last step of our protocol is going to be reflecting our recorder. Sonia is going to share back what was discussed today about the students' work that was assessed and what we learned from today's professional learning community. Oh, could I get 5 minutes on the clock, please?
All right. So the first question was talking about the brief description of the assignment. So we were doing Throwing Fire from the iReady Toolkit, standard 1.1 and 1.3, specifically looking at the questions 5, 6, and 7. Most students getting 5 correct, but having difficulty with 6 and 7. 7 was the biggest challenge. The original assessment gave descriptors, but as a team, the ELE teachers took the character traits away to see what the students came up with. A lot of the students didn't really understand what the question was actually asking. So that was number 1, sorry. Number 2 was based on the data sorted. What did we notice about the students' answers? A lot of students were able to come up with some traits, but couldn't come up with the correct trait or needed to go a little bit deeper. So they had like that surface level, but needed to dive a little deeper. So we're looking for a higher level of vocabulary just overall. Then number 3, strengths and needs. Our strengths were that the students, they could quote accurately, but they can't explain exactly why. And then they understood the story or got the gist of the story. Our needs were to focus in on what the piece of evidence is and then explain why. Then teaching insight with essay writing, that was kind of like a side thing that we're going to have to work on. And then physical features versus character traits, inferencing, and making sense out of the answers. And then number 4, what steps could all teachers take with the students to better adhere to the students' needs? And then dive into character traits or going deeper, modeling different citation stems, noticing trends amongst characters, and understanding how the character traits affect the main idea or plot of the story. That's it.
Maybe modeling different forms of insight as well.
Okay.
I think I said citation stems, but I should have said insight. Giving them a variety of ways that they can add their thinking, because I think
We don't want to start the formula, but we need to have some way to hold on to first, because
Yes.
we assume that they know how to do this stuff, but they don't. And it's hard.
right.
Thank you.
I will send this out to everyone so that we have a copy.
And so for our next time, we'll have, we'll have some good evidence on our interim.
Yes.
To see whether, because I do know that there's a story on there. Alice in Wonderland or
Yes.
one of them.
Oh,
was
that's
really
the
hard.
excerpt from
Yes,
Alice in
and
Wonderland.
so we can see if, the stuff that we're doing between now and then is going to hopefully transfer.